Ani, this is Russell Jones and Laura Owl sitting with you. We're going to go over the $97 million that has went to our, I think, GBEs, General Business Enterprises, and by our I mean Sagamok's. Um, Actually, I found that this number is a little higher. This is like just the cash. We're actually exposed at about like 125 million, but we'll get there. Um, where am I? Next. Yeah, so looking at our spending into our enterprises, like it didn't just all of a sudden, it almost kind of all of a sudden appeared at 97 million dollars. But if you go back to 2001, you can see we actually have no loans reported on our audited statements. So I went back to 2021 to now to what we have now, which is 2025. Yeah, so the tiny little, if you look at the graph there, the first one is the no loans, but we have a little bit. We looks like we bought into a company, I guess, at around $4.47 million. And then the next year in 2022, we lent a little bit of money to someone. And then we bought a little bit more stake in another company or something. I don't know. We don't have the details really. Or maybe we do on those, but we'll check the slides. 2023, lending starts to spike. Ownership stays around the same. And then we have a drop off in 2024 where we lend no money, but we invest in companies like crazy. And then the next year we lend like crazy to those companies. That's where it jumps to the $96 million. I see the number I was talking about earlier was the 123 there. Yeah, what do you think of that? Does that look? That seems like an obvious pattern.
Yeah, it's gone from almost nothing to this significant amount, so it's a huge jump.
It's yeah, I find it very unusual that the year prior to that incredible lending spree, they buy a bunch of companies to lend to, which I guess isn't in itself unsound. I think, from what I understand, it could be a smart thing to do if everything's on the up and up and you're sticking to your own rules and whatnot. But we'll get to that too. Right here, yes, we're looking at 2022. No loans. We were like, no, we don't lend. 2022, 2021, 2022. Same. Well, that's the beginning of the story. By 2023, so this is when we start putting. This is that government. It's government business enterprises. We start loaning money to those, and that covers the ZCLP and the OCL. This was when OCL was, I guess, just the trucking and gravel. I can't remember exactly now. And then we do have, so yeah, I'm looking at the slides here, and we do have some details from back then, back in 2023. We can see a little bit, like just that detail right there. We know how much exactly we advanced to those two companies. This is stuff we're not seeing anymore. This dropped off. Where's my next again?
And I think this is why it's problematic. When you're looking at, can you go back to the previous slide just for a second? So when you're looking at, a slide and you're looking at prior years and there be no lending, then suddenly you see this huge gap. I think we really have to be asking the question as to whether or not the proper processes were followed for how this money was distributed. Sagamok has very clear processes in their FAL that state how money is to be managed overall. And I haven't even actually looked at a lending portion of it. So, that's like a whole other completely question we need to be asking. But I think that, as far as this presentation, we need to be looking at their overall processes and what Sagamok has to mitigate this risk. And based on what I know that they have their FAL, which is their financial administrative law. They have procurement policies, they have their governance manual, their ISO quality management manual, and then they have other accompanying documents like their, I think it's called the administrative manual, but it lays out what the entire process is, right? So at the beginning of every fiscal year, every manager or director of departments have to do work plans and budgets
Sure.
that are then taken to the finance and audit committee for vetting and then bumped up to council for approval. But in looking at their FAL today, I realized that one of the requirements for them to have is planning documents. And one of the items that are identified as key is a strategic plan. I've gone on the website myself and tried to look for information today, and unfortunately, I wasn't able to find anything.
You can find a couple PowerPoint pitch presentations that nothing actually substantial, right? No actual finances, no term sheets, no schedules, nothing, absolutely nothing. And we have to go to the federal websites to get the actual audited statements, which you would think would be on our own members portal as well.
Yeah.
But so speaking of processes, then, and you said this would go to the FAL first, so that's another interesting thing I think is, so back in 2021, the chief was already signing. He wasn't a chief yet again, but he was still the chair of the finance and audit committee, correct?
Yes.
So he's been there like a few years before RHT came in, and he would have been working with Ryan McLeod. I forgot actually. Ryan McLeod may have been the director of finance at the time, even in Sagamok.
I do believe so, because I think that's when he was actually working for Sagamok in office.
Yes.
Was prior to 2022, and then he left for a period of time, and then was brought back on as a contractor. So
exactly.
He would have been
not just as a contractor, but as our financial advisor. He's the one, recommending where we put these monies and which companies to buy, and that's again to say he is a director on Legend Mining, which is just bonkers to me. But anyway, so Chief Gus he's been on the finance and audit committee so that makes it a good 5 years at least, as the chair. So he had to have had the blueprints to this whole structure that's been set up, right?
Yeah.
And the plan, the multi-year plan. You don't just decide and wake up, it's April 1st, the new fiscal year. Let's start lending and borrowing and whatnot, right? Like you got a multi-year plan in your head. So it goes to show, to get that, I mean, you would think he's thinking in his head, and by he I mean Gus. I'm the finance and audit chairman. I got to get back in there for chief so I can get this plan in motion. And if he stays as chairman, stays as chief, stays as the senior administrative officer, takes over that role, then he's got no opposition to any of his designs. He can basically do whatever he wants, right?
Pretty much. And I think that's what it's important for our community members to understand, is that when Sagamok was having issues in the early 2000s, I'm going to keep taking it back there because that's where a lot of our developmental work happened. And it's what set us on a good path. It's what created our quality management initiatives. It's what put us in opportunities to create businesses off reserve. So I think we have to keep referring back to there. And, I both of them, I'm referring to Angus and Ryan, should have known of these requirements, right? They obviously were part of the approval of the FAL, so they know what its contents are. And I need to stress that for community members, that we have mechanisms in place to mitigate risk for our community. And this is exactly why we want to be able to look at, how something was carried out and determine whether or not the appropriate steps were taken. And if they are, there's not a problem. But because we find things out after the fact, like the KGHM mining agreement or purchase, whatever it was, People were shocked because they had no idea what it was, and
I'm still a little
um,
bit foggy on what that is. It seems we've invested some money into
a
into
mining company,
yeah,
right?
I think our trucks are maybe running at one of their sites or something. Some of our workers are supporting their operations. I think that's about it, right? I don't think it's an actual mine that we bought or anything like that. But
But if the
regardless,
proper planning was in place, then we would have already received, like, strategic plans as far as what these plans are going to be, how they're going to phase each section of it in,
yeah, and we
who's
have
going to manage what, to assure the community that proper steps have been taken.
yeah, and this is really all we've been asking for. At least all I've been asking for is just plain questions, just like that. Like, can we see the documents? But I've literally gotten no replies on anything. Um,
Same, same,
yeah,
exact same. I've asked them to, provide me with information in certain cases. I got a response back by email, but there was never any follow up.
yeah, absolutely. It's been my experience with the entire administration.
Yes.
So getting back to the slide here, we switch to the next slide, which is this one. Okay, this one is where I think creative accounting comes in, or yeah, not creative accounting, but I mean, it's easy to hide losses when you operate like this slide says. So the story of OCL, which was the company that is now, it no longer exists. It was amalgamated into the new OCL. And then we have ZLCP. I can't even remember what that is. All these acronyms and numbered companies.
That's Gumma Construction LP.
Okay, so they're developers, I guess, or just construction, like regular construction.
Yeah, I'm not 100% certain what that is. Like, I'm well
Mm,
aware of what ZEI is, but ZCLP came in after my tenure with the community.
gotcha. But so at one point, those two companies together combined owed us $14.4 million. Um, and then the council decided, instead of getting that money back from them direct, we'll take some equity. We'll take ownership of some shares of those companies. So that debt gets rewritten from $14 million to whatever percentage ownership it is. And I don't know. I don't think we have those numbers because those are some of the details we've been asking for. So we have absolutely no idea what we got for our writing off that $14 million worth of debt. All we know is after it was said and done, the amount of debt owed to us dropped to $314,000 instead of $14.4 million. And then
See, and
we own some company.
I think that's extremely important for, whether it be Sagamok Council or the boards of these different companies to be reporting back to our membership for. If you look at ZEI, it's a community company that provides little to no reporting on the activity that they're doing. Um, and again, I attribute it to the leadership because they're the ones that are basically the board, right? They make up composition of the board. So to me, there's a major lack of engagement or communication going back and forth. Like, it's great to be able to get into these businesses and create opportunities, but at the end of the day, we have to be accountable and transparent to our community members so they understand, why they took the position to close it down and
And
do it this way on the books.
like, see, that sounds great in theory, right? Like you get responsible board members, but what we're seeing here in Sagamok is the same names appearing on our counselors appearing in staff roles, committee lists, and our enterprises board seats, directors and treasurers and presidents, secretaries. It's the same small group of people on every company.
Yeah.
So how does that work properly? Even if you do have the proper processes in place, like how many meetings you got to recuse? How many counselors have to recuse themselves when like a ZCLP matter comes up? Like, does 6 people have to leave the room?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Are
does
they
it leave a
declaring
quorum?
conflicts?
Exactly. Are they declaring conflicts like that? And
Yeah.
the record so far shows they're not. So unless they hand us some documentation that tells us otherwise. The assumption right now is they absolutely do not. All right, on to, so we're in 2025. This is where it gets heavy, right? This is the 2025 audited statements. And this little screenshot we got, note 14 on our audited 2025 audited statements. It says we invested, what is it? Does it say 96.6 million dollars into these companies. And we started that year with opening loans of 314,000. We invested the 96.6 million, which put us at a closing loans of $96.9 million in one single year. And the terms on, we have no idea where any of that money went. And we have varying terms here. They say 4% to 12%, which is, a big difference, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I think, there's important questions to ask here, because looking at the minutes, I believe from their September or October meeting in 2024, when they first got in, at one council meeting, I believe, just based on my own calculations, I might have been wrong, there was $45 million that were approved at that meeting.
I think
How can you
that number lines up with
realistically
Sault Ste. Marie.
approve $45 million in expenditures without looking at proper plans, proper
Without
budgets?
even having, so the big story on that number alone is that $38 million of that was unsecured financing. We had no one. We had a hopeful application in with CMHC to give us $38 million, but we started building anyway. I haven't actually seen the property in Sault Ste. Marie, but as I understand it, it's a developed set of apartment buildings that we also have good paper trail that links the Sioux developer on that project and Ryan McLeod to GR Trust, the company our chief is the president of. Like, tell me that doesn't need that doesn't raise questions.
And we still don't have any, assurance that they're getting loans secured for the remainder of that portion. They've committed $7 million of the 45 required to construct that facility. But why hasn't CMHC responded yet? Are the debt ratios too high? What are the issues?
Well, CMHC is
that in the community needs to be made aware of that.
Absolutely, and the sad thing is, I filed the freedom of information request with CMHC. Like this was just last week, so I don't know how long the process takes. Hopefully, it doesn't take very long, but we'll get a little bit more information on there, like the appraisal of the land, which we paid $7 million for, after it was purchased for $1.2 million, like 15 months previous. But yeah, there's just so many numbers flying around, so many different projects and properties. It's nuts. But yes. Getting back to the slide, so this one shows, all right, once we got the settlement, we decided, chief and council decided we're gonna become our own bank, basically. Internal banking model. We finance our own companies. We make the interest instead of an outside lender getting paid the interest. It's a reasonable investment strategy, as I understand it. I'm a software developer, so I don't know for sure. However, the way it's set up right now, we've approved, chief and council have approved $25 million to be accessed, available to be accessed by ZEI, ZCLP, OCL, and Legend, with a return not less than 4%. Quarterly explanatory reports were promised as a next step, but like every other promise, it's been broken. So this $25 million is sitting there. It's not like a bank. It's like a tap. It's just an open tap of money that any of these companies can access for whatever reason, for the rules of which we don't have, right?
Yeah. And that's concerning. I mean, what financial institution or what organization allows you to have like this open pot of money for you to access? My concern from a business perspective and businesses that I've worked with, like throughout Canada and the US, is um, at what point are those companies going to be generating their own revenue, and why are we even dumping more money into them?
That's some very good questions, and I wish they would answer those for us, because that's exactly what everyone wants to know. Um, yeah, the $25 million does not explain the $96 million increase. Okay, so this is where I really need some of your input. I don't really understand the FNFA borrowing and the loaning and all that, but so we got $603 million, cha-ching, and
Mm-hmm.
then we decided to borrow $69.6 million from FNFA at the same time.
Yeah.
And then from it was that pool of money. So we haven't really I haven't really specified this yet, but so that $96.6 million that we loaned to our own companies, we have no idea if some of that was from FNFA, some of it was from the RHT settlement, or wherever else it may come from. I have no idea.
And I think this is why it's important for members again to understand, what's happening in our community. It's difficult for somebody without, a financial background, or, even basic like financial management. It's hard to understand these numbers. And what's missing and most important here is information from council. According to the FNA, or First Nation Financial Management Board, anybody who is approved for a FAL has to follow the said standard rules that they've identified. Within those standard rules, there has to be a strategic plan. There has to be annual budgets. There's a very defined process that has to be
Right.
followed.
It's a checklist, right? Like it shouldn't be
Yes.
hard. It should not
Yeah.
be hard. Um, so what's the
And if these
problem?
are community monies, sorry, if there's community monies, this should be something that our council and our boards are striving for on a regular basis. Maybe it's not monthly reporting, financial reporting that they do. Maybe it's quarterly, but we haven't received anything since, I don't know. It's just bits and pieces
You
of
know,
information, and it's
it's
difficult for individuals to
2026. I would think
understand
we
what
should get
is.
this in real time. Like why not
Yeah,
real time? Like
yeah.
what's the big holdup? They don't even live stream the council meetings. Like they are an intentional black box.
Yeah. Even that, it would really address a lot of the information gaps. If they were streaming the council meetings, members on reserve and off reserve have access to information. They'd be able to ask questions at the time,
For
but
sure.
that currently isn't happening.
I would have, I went to my first council meeting in person that, wasn't even on the schedule, just last or 2 weeks ago or whatever it was. But that's not to say, like, I mean, what I'm saying is I would attend every meeting if it was available online, like every possible
Yeah,
meeting I could attend. I do
yeah.
want to be a part of my community, and that's what led me to this, is trying to just I was just trying to get a fair shake out of the economic development department, and that was like banging my head against a effing wall. Um,
Similar. That was why I actually attended a meeting a couple months ago. It's funny that you say that. I was looking for the economic development officer because I had put an application in about a year and a half, 2 years prior, and
you
I
mean
was getting fed up.
counselor economic development officer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I went. That's where I thought there was like some type of public meeting. I had no idea the council meetings were taking place there, and I walked in, and it was a council meeting. It's very tech, like it's very up to date. They have the equipment to do
Yeah.
streaming. They're all sitting in front of microphones and computers. There's absolutely no reason that
Yeah,
it shouldn't be
it looks
broadcast.
super pro. Like there's absolutely no, and especially the meeting I was at, they were talking about buying and adding more cameras to our properties. Tell me you can't buy another camera and put it in the damn council chambers? Come
Yeah.
on, man, give me a break.
Why do you want more cameras if it's not reciprocal? Are you
Yeah,
watching what we're doing, but
who
we can't
watches the
understand what people
watchers,
are?
man?
Yeah, exactly. It's concerning.
Okay, yeah. So this slide here, how I said 96.9 wasn't even the final number. So that was the 123. So 26.6 million is ownership of these companies, and so meaning we're exposed. If any of these companies go under, we stand to lose $26 million on top of the 96 million that we loan to them in cash money. Um,
And it would be good for us to have a breakdown of how what this includes and how it potentially impacts the community. Because at the end of the day, if these loans go in default, it comes from her bank accounts, which
Yes.
comes from our trust
Yeah.
funds.
It will cost us a lot of money, 123 million amounts of money, if this all goes tits up. So I think people should be
Exactly.
concerned. So this is this slide here we're looking at now is the variable interest rate limits, between 4 and 12%. Like, that's just a vague number that's out there in that one audited statement that I found, or that's posted. So if you actually apply the 4 to 12% to what we've lent these companies in our ownership, we should be getting back between 3.8 and 11.6 million dollars a year for 1 year. So that's a pretty wide gap. Like, I want to know, are we making 4 million or are we making 12 million?
And that's something that should be communicated to our members. There should be balanced. I even think something simpler, basically a newsletter to show graph. This is what we're making right now. This is what we made this quarter.
Very
this
reasonable.
is what we've expended. Very simple to do.
Yeah. But it's like pulling teeth.
Yes.
All right. Enterprise results do not show loan performance. Yeah, so this year, what was it here? 2025 again? Yes. Sagamok share of GBE income was a loss of $176,000. So far with the numbers we got, all this money that we put in so far only shows a loss of $176,000. Obviously, it's very, very early to try to judge any of these investments. In that sense, I guess. It's really hard to judge anything, period, because we got no information. So we're left kind of just what we're doing
trying
now.
To decide what's going on.
What is this? Legend Mining loss 1.79 million before over ownership weighting. I'm not sure what that term means. Ownership weighting.
Yeah, nor do I.
I don't know. I see lose and 1.79 million beside it, so that says a lot to me.
That's all that matters, is that we lost 1.79 million.
ZCLP earned 1.17 million. I guess yay for ZCLP. OCL lost 444,000, and ZEI earned $17,000. Big year for that company. Right on.
See, and I think, again, this is what needs to be explained to members. What does each of these companies do?
Yeah,
what does ZLP do? What does Legend Mining do? What does OCL do? And what does ZEI do? It's part of their FAL that they're required to report back to the community. It's part of their ISO certification that they provide sufficient information to community members, and it's just not happening.
No, absolutely not. And then the posted ISO 9001 certificate is expired right now. Sagamok's posted ISO certificate is expired since 2024. So that's either a lapse in the certificate itself, right? Or they didn't post a new one.
No, I do recall seeing something over the past 6 months online where it stated that there was some non-compliance issues that they had to address. So typically within that ISO process, you're given like a 30-day time frame to address those deficiencies.
Maybe we should just step back 1 second and explain what the ISO designation actually is.
So ISO certification is a global standard that was brought into the community between 2004 to 2007. It was to create a quality management system that addressed or mitigated risk across the board. And it ensured that we had clear financial pathways, communication, human resources. Like it addresses all the guts of an organization that make it run the way it does.
So all those processes and like getting funding and reporting back to the funders, providing the services for the community, right? That's all part
Yeah.
of like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
ISO covers all those processes so that there's no guesswork. Everyone knows that every service has a process that must be followed
Yes.
to ensure quality delivery, right?
Yeah.
So
And the reason,
basically,
I guess the importance, sorry, I don't want to cut you off,
no
but the
go.
importance of it is that to ensure that there's succession planning, right? So say I worked as the director of operations,
Right.
and back in the day, the purpose of it would be to ensure that, say, you came into the position as the director of operations,
Yeah.
could literally pick up a manual
Yeah.
and go based off what it said.
Yeah.
And
It's
you would
like a
be able
get
to
hit
look
by a
at
bus
all the
plan, right?
previous work. Pardon me?
It's like a get hit by a bus plan. You get hit by a bus, and the next person comes in, and away they go.
Exactly. And that's the way it's set up to be. And, so I think that's why it's challenging for me as an individual to understand is that Sagamok had such good processes in place that it's difficult to understand how they no longer exist or got lost, and how it's impacted our communities. But that's the beauty of it. Those type of systems have, they give us mechanisms to use to be able to measure what's happening within the organization.
Right.
So based on my experience as a lead auditor for ISO, I know, what principles I would be looking at going into the organization of Sagamok, and what paper specifically I'm looking at to address areas like this. Very
Yes.
different from a financial audit. It's more like a paper trail audit.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You can't measure something unless you have a log, right? Like you
Yeah.
can't measure performance. Can't say if you did a good job or not.
Yeah.
So with that being said, is there any reasonable explanation to let your designation lapse like that?
I really don't know, because this is the precipice for like Sagamok change, right? When Sagamok was almost in third party management or having a really difficult time back in the early 2000s, this system was implemented to ensure that it never happened again in the future.
Gotcha.
It made sure that there was accountability for our membership, transparency, and it defined what those processes were.
So there was a real need for it back in the early 2000s. Like, I guess things were really bad in the band office.
Yes. And, I don't even want to say in the past, because it's reflective of what's happening today.
Yeah, no, exactly. I just wanted to pin down that there was an actual need for it, and that's why this designation actually came into the. I didn't know what it was for forever and ever. I just remember it seemed like something that Sagamok was very proud of and was pushing out and wanted to.
It was actually one of the primary reasons why Sagamok was considered for a lot of opportunities in the mining industry, or why government started to look at us in a different perspective, because we were actually able to prove that we had a higher level of service and organization, and just overall management.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. You're not saying, hey, just trust us, we know what we're doing. Like, you can show it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Did I skip? No, that was it. So this FAL, yeah, we've been saying FAL a lot too, with this ISO. So explain FAL a little bit.
So the FAL is the financial administrative law that was passed by Sagamok. This particular law is overseen or certified by the First Nation Financial Management Board, and its purpose is to, assist them in creating the FAL, but also to give them access to a pool of money that they could borrow at a lower rate than a bank like TD or Royal Bank.
Okay, I understand a little bit now. A little better. Like, yeah, how I was saying earlier, I didn't get that. There's these I can't remember what they call it in the borrowing law. They call it a borrowing law, right?
Yeah.
So that's just a loan.
Yeah. So the FAL is, it's the financial quality management system, and basically for the organization, whereas the ISO 9001 is the actual records and management of it all.
So they complement each other basically, and
100%. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, that pretty much brings us to the end of the slideshow here. what we're trying to encourage the members to do is start asking these questions, asking for these records. We have there's a lot of explaining to do, right? Don't you think?
Yeah, 100%. And I think this is what we want on Thursdays. We want membership to come out and to ask crucial questions, or in preparation of the July 28th meeting, because I've asked, you've asked, like personally, and I know others have asked for information. But why do we have to ask for information when it should just be an expectation of good governance that we're receiving it? We have an organization that has an obligation to our community that should be pumping out according to, the policies and standards that we've put in place. And likewise, our governance, our leadership should be doing the same. We've voted them in or elected them in to act on our behalf and in our best interest. Over the last 2 years, it's been very difficult to talk to any council members, and for whatever reasons. But I think this is what we need to encourage our membership to do: is bug them whenever you can, or attend these meetings and start asking questions. Yeah.
Remind them that we are here. Do it when you see them. We're bumping them at the store, on the street, in the office. They are here to serve and answer questions. Like, that's their job. So let's remind them of that, and then we got to make sure we do it together too. Like, show up to these meetings, the information session, and then especially the chief and council meetings. And did you see that they scheduled so this community safety law, or sorry, it was called the community safety law, but now it's been renamed to the trespass law. It actually says what it is now: trespass bylaw. But they scheduled the consultation for that trespass bylaw on the same day as the chief and council meeting. It's just one after the other. Like,
yeah.
Tell me that isn't by design, Laura.
Yeah.
Anyway, this slide here, it's just showing this is what an actual loan schedule would look like, a real simple like spreadsheet kind of deal. This is the company that borrowed the money from us. This is where we got the money from, whether it be settlement money or FNFA, etc., etc. All the details, and it's not a lot of details, and there's a lot of companies, but not enough to fill up a spreadsheet where it's hard to fucking look at. So yeah, give us our records, man, and everyone show up to this Thursday, July 23rd, 2026, 6 to 8 p.m. at the Massey Legion Hall. Can't get a ride? Ask somebody. If you're driving, pick somebody up. But make sure you get out there, and you guys can ask any questions you want. We'll have the data up, and Laura's expertise in all this administrative and financial stuff, which I'm swimming in right now. But Laura will help us out, right?
Yep. Just a question though, before we end. Are we going to be providing an online link for our officer members?
Absolutely.
I think it's crucial.
I think I'm just going to stream it on like my website, the rhtcircle.ca, and I'll just post the link and people can tune in.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So the link is coming. Yeah, that's a good point, because people have been asking me. Yeah, I'll post that within the day or two. All right. Good night. Mm-hmm. Have a good night, Laura.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.